This show is sponsored by PowerfulWomenUSA.com, a place to be inspired by other women. Hey, everybody, I'm Jill Conway, and this is Secrets of Powerful Women, a show dedicated to celebrating and supporting strong and successful women and sharing their stories. I'm hoping that you will be inspired to pursue your own dreams, reclaim your voice, and discover your strengths. So my guest today is Sarah Rusbatch. Sarah is an accredited gray area drinking coach and certified women's health and well-being coach, and she joins us from Australia. So Sarah, thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is wonderful. And it was hard to coordinate a time, and she is up very early in the morning for us. So I want to say thank you. But Sarah, let's jump in because we don't have a whole lot of time, but what is gray area drinking?
So gray area drinking describes the place between someone who is an every now and then drinker. It might be someone that has a glass of champagne at a wedding once or twice a year, and other than that, alcohol just does not feature in their life. Or the other end of the spectrum is someone with physical dependency on alcohol who needs to have very careful medical support to safely withdraw from alcohol, because alcohol is one of only 3 substances that the human body can die from withdrawal from. So you've got 2 ends of the spectrum there. You've got someone who barely drinks or doesn't drink. You've got someone with physical dependency who needs to drink every day because if they suddenly stopped, they could die, and they need to be carefully managed to come off alcohol. And in the middle, you have gray area drinkers. So this is really prevalent amongst midlife women. And we know that midlife women is the only demographic across the Western world where alcohol use is going up rather than down. And so gray area drinkers tend to have developed perhaps an emotional dependency on alcohol. They're not physically addicted. They can go for breaks without alcohol. They probably don't drink every single day. They don't wake up in the morning needing to have a drink, but it is their crutch for insert the uncomfortable emotion or the difficult situation that they will turn to time and time again, whether that be stress, whether it be sadness, whether it be overwhelm, whether it be loneliness, whether it be anger, whether it be I've just had an argument with my husband, whether it be my boss is driving me mad, whether it be a celebration, whether it be anxiety in social situations. But for gray area drinkers, they're emotionally using alcohol to either escape themselves or the way that they're feeling, or to navigate social situations because they feel socially anxious without a drink in hand.
I heard you say, I think, or something you on your website, and you say that many women used to use alcohol to numb, as you said, right, to numb your emotions, and that really struck a chord with me because of, I know a lot of people, and that's something people don't want to talk about, right? Maybe they're miserable in some aspect of their life, and that's what they reach for instead of wanting maybe to talk about it. So can you talk about that? I mean, the relationship, as you mentioned it a little, about between alcohol consumption and, a mental health issue, not even an issue, but a concern.
Yeah, I think it's very, very common. And I think the moment we have created a neural pathway in our brain that says, when I feel X, if I drink alcohol, that feeling goes away, we're in trouble. Because the brain doesn't forget. And the brain always wants a short, quick fix solution for survival, because our brain's number one job is to keep us safe. And the problem is that stress and overwhelm, which many midlife women are experiencing constantly, if we've created a short circuit in our brain that says alcohol makes that go away, we're just in all sorts of trouble, because the moment we feel stress or overwhelm, we have likely created a habit around alcohol is the go-to solution. It's actually interesting. This is a generalization, so not the case for everyone, but research shows men are more likely to drink to enhance a good time. Women are more likely to drink to escape and to switch off.
Wow. Well, let's talk about that because I know, so many people come home and after a stressful day for work, they use it to unwind, right? So many people. And I'm not saying anything's good or bad. I'm just saying what the conversations I've had, right? And it is, I'm midlife. And you have many clients, what are the the stressors, particularly of a midlife woman or man?
Yeah, I think it's everything. I think that we live in a world where we don't get to switch off very much anymore. COVID has blurred the lines between work and home life. And, I set up my business in just before COVID. And so you can imagine how busy I was, as
Yeah.
soon as I launched, really, because so many women were struggling with seeing their alcohol use increasing during COVID. So we've got this situation where there's insane pressure that comes at us from everywhere, where many women are working full time, raising kids, doing the lion's share of what's required at home. We're in that generation where we might have elderly parents that are starting to lean on us and demand more from us, whether it be medical appointments or helping them with things. We've got pressure that comes culturally and externally. Are you making your kids home cooked meals? Are you looking after yourself? Are you going to the gym? You have to be a certain size. You have to look a certain way. Are you meditating? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you great in bed with your husband? Do you see your friends enough? Are you managing your menopause symptoms? And it
It's
is
true.
relentless. And alcohol in the short term is a great solution because it numbs
Mm,
us. It's a depressant to the central nervous system. So in 20 minutes of having a drink, you will start to shut down. The
mm,
problem, Jill, is that long term, alcohol is a terrible solution because of the havoc it causes in the body, where the body's trying to get some balance back after the consumption of alcohol. And the way that the body does that is by releasing more of the stress hormone cortisol. So while we might get a temporary relief feeling at the start, what that does is go on to make us feel more stressed and anxious than we were before we even had a drink. And research has shown people who drink not huge amounts, but just, one or two drinks, 3 or 4 nights a week, have a higher baseline of circulating cortisol, the stress hormone, than people who don't drink at all. So the irony is we make ourselves more stressed by drinking, but it's our solution to the stress that we're feeling. And so many women, and then you throw in perimenopause where our anxiety is starting to increase, our
mhm.
progesterone is dropping, our estrogen is dropping. We can feel like we're all over the place, and alcohol will exacerbate those perimenopause symptoms, but it disguises itself as a solution because of the initial 20-minute relaxing feeling that we get when we have alcohol.
Mm. It's, I mean, you're speaking the truth. I think it's amazing to me w- that I don't think many people make that connection, like as you just did, right? It's kind of like the subtle. I think you called it something subtle. The subtle ways of drinking too much. Like you don't notice it. You don't notice that it's creeping up the amount that you've had.
Exactly. And the problem is
Yeah.
that we built tolerance. So what
Yeah.
used to be one glass becomes one and a half, becomes two, becomes half a bottle. Like I can easily have women who come to me for support who are drinking 1.5 bottles of wine a night. And that's just normal for them. They get up in the morning, they go to the gym, they work full time, they're raising their kids because the body builds tolerance. And I had a client say to me, I drink a bottle of wine a night, Sarah, and I feel okay. Like I don't feel like I'm not in bed vomiting. I'm not taking days off work. So is
Right.
it a problem? And I'm like, well, let's just look at some of the data here. 10 units of alcohol per week is the recommended guideline for women. A bottle of wine is about 10 units. So if we're having a bottle a night, that's 70 units per week. And we know that anything above 21 units is considered heavy drinking. And that's where our increased risk for alcohol related cancer, such as breast cancer, will start to significantly increase as well. So just because the body's built tolerance and we feel okay doesn't mean that it is okay. And I think we've normalized in society using alcohol as a solution to all of life's problems without talking about the fact we build tolerance. It's a level 1 carcinogen that directly causes cancer and it increases our anxiety. And so, somewhere along the way, the messaging around alcohol has become a little bit blurred around what we believe it actually does give us.
Sarah, how did you get to be a gray area drinking coach?
So, I had a problematic relationship with alcohol. I drank a lot in my teens. I grew up in the north of England. And in London, I moved to London in the 1990s. It was very much that work hard, play hard culture. I was working in investment banking. It was the era of Sex and the City. There was this whole kind of girl power movement. It was the Spice Girls. It was, women were kind of sticking their fingers up at the patriarchy and going, we can have our girlfriends and our cosmopolitans and we don't need men in our lives. And it was a real movement and a real era at that time. And all that did was perpetuate alcohol as a positive thing for women to have in their lives. And
Mhm.
I had a high capacity for alcohol. I wasn't someone that had a couple of drinks and was drunk and falling over and had to be taken home. Like, I prided myself on the fact I could match the boys drink for drink down the
Right.
pub. I very rarely got hangovers. So alcohol was very present in my life. But that was socially, it wasn't really something I did on my own at home, but I was very social, like living in London when you're single and you don't have a
Yes.
car, you don't drive anywhere. It's kind of like there's always someone to go to the pub, right? So
Right.
but it just wasn't problematic. And for me, the switch changed a little bit when I met my husband and we moved to Australia, and we already had our son. I was pregnant with my daughter, and then all of a sudden we'd moved to Australia where we were living, and I had no support network. I had no family. I had no friends. Had gone from having a very successful, high flying career in London to not working so that I could be at home with, by this point, I had two kids under two.
Oh
And
boy.
it's a really, no one
Traumatic.
prepares you for the mental shift because
Mhm.
you're so excited to be a mum and you're so grateful that you have these two beautiful, healthy kids. And on paper, I had everything I wanted. We moved to Australia. We lived by the beach. The sun was shining. My husband was setting up a business. We had saved enough money in London that I could take a bit of time off to raise our children. So on paper, I had it all. But inside, I was really homesick, Jill. I was really
Mm.
lonely. I was really confused. My days were being spent cleaning up baby sick, pureeing carrot, and going to monkey music. I was trying to
Right.
find my my place in a culture that I was finding more difficult to immerse myself in than I thought I would. I was struggling to make friends. And that's when alcohol became something that made all those feelings go away, albeit temporarily. So while I wasn't drinking during the day while I was in charge of the kids, it was something that more and more I'd be thinking about by 3 o'clock. Oh, when Angus gets home from work, I'll be able to pour a wine. Oh, make sure that I've got cold wine in the fridge. If I had no wine in the house, I'd walk up to the bottle shop with the kids in the pram to buy my wine so that I knew I had it for later. It just became that emotional crutch that I had worked out was the solution to not feeling the way that I wanted to feel. And that was when my alcohol use started to become something I did on my own and something that I did at home as opposed to something I was doing socially. And over the years, this just was increasing to a bit more. And what I noticed after I turned 40 was that I was really anxious whenever I drank. Like the day after, my anxiety was through the roof. I was struggling with sleep. So when I drank, I would often wake up at 2 or 3 a.m., hot sweats, anxiety, heart beating fast, not able to get back to sleep. Then, of course, the next day you feel rubbish. You're really hard on yourself. Oh, I said I wasn't
Mm.
going to drink last night. And then I went and drank too much. And here I am again, feeling dreadful. I've got a whole day of work ahead. I've got to sort out the kids. I'm not going to drink again. I'm just going to take a break off now. I won't drink for a week. And then by 5 o'clock, oh, just one won't hurt. That'll be okay. And I was just in this vicious cycle. And, I didn't drink every day. I didn't drink Mondays and Tuesdays. That was my rule. I didn't drink huge amounts every night, but it was still getting to that point where it was taking more than it was giving. And so in 2017, I took a break from alcohol because I was curious. I wanted to see, okay, I'm feeling dreadful. I'd gone to my doctor for my anxiety and I'd said to her, I'm a shell of the woman I used to be. I'm overthinking everything. I'm really paranoid. I'm really anxious. And at no point did she say to me, how much are you drinking? She happily
Mm.
wrote me a prescription for anti anxiety meds, but the conversation about alcohol just didn't come up. And I was 41 at the time, and I decided I'm going to do a 21-day break from booze. They say it takes 21 days to break a habit. Right. I just thought in my head, I just had a bad habit. So I just needed to take
Mm.
21 days off and I would be okay. And I got to the end of that 21 days and everything had changed. So my anxiety had disappeared. my sleep had improved, which meant that my energy had improved, which meant that my mood had improved, which meant that I was feeling more positive. I was way calmer with the kids. I wasn't, yelling or being impatient with them. I was being more productive at work. I felt more positive about my work. I was losing weight. My skin was looking good. People were saying to me, "Oh, Sarah, what are you doing? What's so different?"
Right.
So I kept going and I got to 100 days. But then I was like, well, I can't never drink again. That would just be really weird because by this point I'd created this entire identity. I was Sarah the party girl. I was
Mm.
the one that everyone came to before the party, after the party. So I thought, oh, I've taken 100 days off. So now I'll be a grown up drinker. Now I'll be someone that just has a glass of wine with their steak on a Sunday night and my problems with alcohol will all be over. And I went back to drinking, and very quickly I was back to drinking the same level as before because the problem with alcohol use and emotional reliance on alcohol is the moment you let alcohol back in, if you've been using alcohol to escape stress or overwhelm or anything like that, the moment you've let alcohol back in and you experience a stressful situation, the brain is like, have a drink, that's the solution. So very
Right.
quickly, my drinking returned to what it had been before. And very quickly, all the negative impact of alcohol returned in terms of the anxiety, the weight gain, the poor sleep, the low mood, the low energy, being impatient and cross with the kids, can't be asked at work, getting by with the bare minimum. And then was on this roller coaster for 2 years of taking breaks, going back to drinking, trying to moderate, going, if only I could just be a grown up, healthy drinker, just someone that has a glass every now and then. But that just wasn't me. And finally, in 2019, so 6.5 years ago, I just said, I'm done. I'm done. Everything in my life is better when I don't drink. So I'm gonna just move away from that. So I had my last drink and then I decided to retrain to become a health and well-being coach and a grey area drinking coach because I figured there must be lots of other women out there that don't. I didn't identify as being an alcoholic. I didn't want to go to an AA meeting and stand up and say, "Hi, I'm Sarah, I'm an alcoholic," because that didn't feel true for me. I didn't identify with that label. But I did identify when I learned about grey area drinking. So I did my accreditation in grey area drinking, and then I did an online interview with a big Australian publication that actually goes all over the world. And I shared my story as a grey area drinker, and it was quite a raw, vulnerable story. I really went into detail about how I'd been feeling. And then the interview went live, and I didn't really know what to expect. But by the next day, 8,000 women had contacted me, and they all said, "Sarah, you've just told my story." And that was when I knew so many women are struggling in silence with this area of gray area drinking, and they don't know where to get help because they don't identify as being alcoholics. They don't want to go to an AA meeting, but they look around them and most people seem to be drinking like they are, and no one is talking about the negative side effects that it's having. All we do is glamorize alcohol and talk about it as a solution. And I think what I did was give women permission to actually analyze their relationship with alcohol and say, is it taking more than it's giving? Do I feel ready to change my drinking habits?
I think you bring up a very good point because so often we think, drinking like that, it's a black and white issue. And that's where the gray comes in, right? Because it's right. It's either, well, I'm not an alcoholic. Well, what's an alcoholic? I mean, what is an alcoholic for you? What's the definition? I would say.
We don't even use that term in the health
Oh,
world anymore because we talk about alcohol use disorder as being on a
right.
spectrum of mild, moderate, and severe. So mild alcohol use disorder would be about a 3 or 4 on that scale that we talked about. And that
Yeah.
is generally anyone who's drinking above 10 units a week, which is 1 bottle of wine a week. Moderate would be moving up to that kind of 2 bottles, 2.5 bottles a week. And then you would have heavy, which would be what some people would describe as an alcoholic. And that would be someone with physical dependency on alcohol who's drinking every day. They wake up in the morning, with trembling hands and will be drinking hard liquor likely through the day. But I don't work with anyone that is doing that. And
Right.
so it becomes confusing because you don't know what you are because you're not that. But at the
Right.
same time, you're like, yeah, but I know that alcohol's affecting me. And when people say, well, just drink less, It's not as
Right.
easy as that for gray area drinkers. And we have to remember that alcohol is in the top 5 most addictive substances in the world. So it's not as simple for a lot of people of going, just drink less, because it's highly addictive, whether that be physical or emotional.
Well, how hard was it when you said, you did the first 21 days, and then it went on to 100? How hard were those days?
It's really hard. It's really hard because what you have to learn to do is sit with yourself in those moments of deep discomfort when you've always used alcohol to escape yourself. And so it can be a really big emotional roller coaster. And that's why I create the programs that I do for women so that they don't have to do it alone. Because when I quit drinking, there wasn't the support that I'm now offering. And that was why I created the programs that I have for women, because to feel less alone and to have a group of women supporting each other is what really, really helps. And so you've got combined factors. You've got, well, what do I do to soothe myself when things are really hard?
Right.
You've got peer pressure, because most gray area drinkers have surrounded themselves with other gray area drinkers. So it might be your
Mhm.
partner, it might be your best friends, but they're all going, oh, don't be so boring, just have one, and so you can get that pressure from other people. You can feel a little bit awkward and clunky socializing at the start because
Mhm.
people might be questioning, why aren't you drinking? What's wrong with you? And you feel
Mhm.
really, really a little bit like, I don't know if I want to socialize. And so there's a lot to navigate. And then you also have to know, well, what am I going to do when I get a really strong craving at 5 o'clock? Because that's what I've always done. And
Mhm.
that's why I created the program I've created, is because it helps women go through all of this.
All right, so we're coming up on almost 22 minutes in. So I do want to come back and I want to talk about your programs. But I just think this is a great conversation to have. I really do, especially with the holidays coming, especially with women and men, struggling and not wanting to deal with whatever they're dealing with, whatever they're going through. So let's pause here. There's so much more to talk about. We'll be back with Sarah Rusbatch after the commercial break. You're listening to Secrets of Powerful Women. Help me get the word out. Share this with your friends right now because this is really good. We'll be back. Hi, everybody. I'm Jill Conway. Thank you so much for listening and loving the Secrets of Powerful Women podcast. If you could, please like and subscribe to my channel on Spotify or iHeart, Apple Music, Audible, and YouTube. It will help me expand the show and bring you more incredible women who are inspiring you with their stories. I am so grateful for your support, so thank you. Keep listening and share this with your friends. We're changing the world. Welcome back. You're listening to Secrets of Powerful Women. Sarah Rusbatch is with me. She's a certified gray area drinking coach. And Sarah, I wanted to talk about, first off, before we touch base on the programs in depth, I wanted to touch about this, though. You wrote an article that I read about teenagers and alcohol and how parents can handle that with their kids, because I personally think it's kind of unrealistic. And people might fight me on this, to say, go off to, college, Bobby, and don't have a drink, right? Or, don't go to that high school party. No one in high school should be drinking. It's illegal. Don't do it. I think that's unrealistic. So, what do you tell parents?
Yeah, and I think the most important thing parents can do is, number one, educate themselves on what alcohol actually is and what it does, because the information is available now that wasn't available when we were kids to our parents. And we now know that it's a level 1 carcinogen. We now know that it impacts the brain and leads to dementia. We now know that the earlier you start drinking, you're 4 times more likely to develop alcohol use disorder. So we have information available to us now that we didn't then. So I encourage parents to educate themselves. The second thing I think is so important is, for our kids are more impacted by what we do as parents than what we say. So do your kids see you socialize with your friends without alcohol? Or do your kids have now a subconscious belief that the only way parents socialize and have fun is to drink alcohol, because that was the case for me. I grew up in a house where the only time my parents socialized was with alcohol. There would be raucous dinner parties happening in my home and, like, laughter and singing and all of this. So as a little girl, I didn't realize it at the time, but I'm starting to create this belief
Right.
that that's what parents do to have fun. And then the third thing is like talking to your kids about it. My son is 16. He's alcohol curious. There's kids in his year that are drinking, friends that are drinking. And I'm like, I'm not here to say you can't drink, but I'm here to talk about what alcohol is and what it isn't. It's not a way to boost your confidence, to get people to like
Mhm.
you, to escape your emotions. And he knows that these are our boundaries around alcohol in our family, and in our home. And kids need boundaries, and we need to have those conversations with kids a lot earlier than we think we do. So
Mm.
even by the age of 10 or 11, we should be setting the rules and the boundaries in our home for our family's values around underage drinking.
You do make it clear though, and you're very open about it too, that you're not anti-alcohol. I think you wrote that you're not anti-alcohol, that you are pro sharing the facts about alcohol. I
Yeah,
think
I'm
that's
not
important.
anti-alcohol at all. I'm not advocating for prohibition. And if someone's got a healthy relationship with alcohol and it doesn't have a negative impact on them, go for your life. What I'm here to do is support people who've noticed that alcohol's not working and is starting to impact them more negatively, and they're
Mm.
struggling to create change. And I'm very pro that women, especially, are provided with the facts about alcohol so they can make informed decisions. There's a lot of information out there that shows the lengths that the alcohol industry have gone to cover up the impact and the link between alcohol and breast cancer. They've deliberately set out to cover this so that women don't know. A recent study was done and showed only 1 in 5 women are aware that alcohol causes breast cancer. Only 1 in 5. That means 80% of women are not aware. And those women that are aware think that you have to be drinking in high, significant amounts in order to be at risk of alcohol related breast cancer. But you don't. Like, even like the World Health Organization says now there's no safe amount of alcohol. And even drinking more than 2 to 3 drinks a week is going to start increasing your risk. And with breast cancer, it's compounded. So the more you drink, the higher the risk. And if someone's drinking 21 units of alcohol or more per week, which is around 2 bottles of wine per week, that risk increases to around 40%. And so many people don't know this. And so I'm not here saying you mustn't drink, but I'm here in a world that glamorizes alcohol, where the
Mm.
culture around alcohol is very much around you need it to have fun, you need it to be sexy, you need it to relax, you need it to be social.
Mhm.
Let's actually look at what it actually is, as opposed to glamorizing it in that way.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. First of all, I didn't know that. I didn't know the stats that you just mentioned either. Um, we spoke about it in the quick break, but since I discovered you and I was doing kind of research on it, I kind of really started to look into the business of marketing alcohol, as I mentioned to you, and truly the commercials. And if everyone would just it, pull their emotions out of this conversation and just look at what they're selling, they're not selling the drink as much as they're selling the good time, right? They're selling the a party with the attractive girls. They're selling, even in pictures, they in films, they sell this romanticized version of drinking and smoking at the bar. And gosh, in the 40s and 50s, it was like the cool thing. You're the cool kid, right? And it's such an interesting conversation when you really stop and look at it, right? Like, oh, you're so much more masculine, you're rugged when you're drinking. And it's so crazy what
Yeah,
we've
and
done.
I always smile whenever I watch like a police drama that has a female lead. She's had a hard day at work. She comes home. The first thing she does is pour a glass of wine, and that's her way to relax and switch off. And we're constantly being exposed to this subliminal messaging that is just subtle, but it's there constantly, that alcohol is the solution to stress, to overwhelm, to
Mhm.
everything else. And it's hugely played a part in, I think the latest statistic shows alcohol use disorder in women has increased 87% in the last 30 years. And so that, and I would say that's hands down to the marketing.
Right, right, right. So I do want to jump back to, and you mentioned it before, but why women are so much more at risk to negative symptoms of drinking and alcohol than men are.
So the main thing that I'm really passionate about women understanding is a couple of things: that their body cannot metabolize alcohol as effectively as a man. So number one reason for that is a man has a higher, generally speaking, more water content in their body, and a woman has more fat content. And this is the way that, Mother Nature designed us, because women will often carry babies and they will store more fat, generally speaking. So because a man, his body contains more water, he will dilute more of the alcohol and extract it quicker from his body. The second thing is women produce less of an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase, ALDH. Men have a lot more of this. So if a man and a woman drink the same drink side by side, more alcohol content enters a woman's bloodstream than a man's bloodstream. So more alcohol is being taken to the woman's brain, to the woman's organs, and to just circulating in the woman's body than a man's. And then the reason this is more problematic for women as we age is we have less of this enzyme. And then once we start aging, we produce even less of it. So by the time a woman is in her 40s, 50s, 60s, her liver volume is beginning to shrink. So her actual capacity in the liver to process, metabolize, and eliminate the alcohol becomes less. And she has less of this enzyme, alcohol dehydrogenase. So for a man and a woman, they are both equally susceptible to alcohol related stroke, but it will happen 7 times faster to a woman. Men and women are equally vulnerable to alcohol related heart disease, liver cancer. Even how quickly they will become addicted to alcohol will happen quicker to a woman, simply because we cannot metabolize alcohol as effectively as a man. So the alcohol is doing us more damage. And that's what's problematic for me in the marketing of alcohol to women. No one is talking about this, and no one is taking this into account. And we know that 30 years ago, the alcohol industry sat down and for the first time started to segment their marketing of alcohol. Whereas before they'd had generalized alcohol campaigns
Mhm.
that tended to be more focused around sport, which then meant it was more focused towards men. And they sat around the table and went, oh, we're not making enough money from women. So we're not getting enough women to drink enough. So we need to change our marketing and actually change our products so that these are targeted to women. So this is when we saw the rise of pink drinks. This is when we saw the rise of more palatable RTD drinks, the flavored money juice, as it's called, and all of this
Yeah.
stuff. And it actually just makes me sick to the stomach to think of a group of people, most likely men, that's a stereotype from me, but in my head, it's a group of men sat round a table going, how are we going to make more money? Oh, let's get the women addicted to
Um,
alcohol. We'll just create a pink drink and they'll all buy it. And I feel like we've all just fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker. I absolutely did. Oh,
yeah.
I was, always the one going, I love pink champagne. I really want to drink pink champagne. And I had no idea that actually my beautiful body was being so heavily poisoned by the alcohol, because my body just can't metabolize it like a man's can. And so, going back to what we said before, I'm not anti alcohol, but I am pro women being able to actually educate and empower themselves to decide, do I want to take this risk? Because so many women just don't know. And that's why having this conversation with you on this platform, it won't just change lives, it might save lives.
Mm. Oh, I hope so. I hope so. What do you said in the break you have 10,000 clients who have gone through your program or in your program. What what is there a commonality with all of them that again they only whatever maybe had one or two drinks a week or is there a common thread that marital problems, relationship problems that all kind of, led them to have an issue with it?
Yeah, look, I think that the common theme is most of my women are age 40 to 65. They are using alcohol in some kind of unhealthy way. It's not at the point where it's physical dependence, but they're surprised when they go, I need to just cut back a bit. I need to not drink as much. And they struggle to do that and they can't do it. And they're confused as to why, because a lot of the messaging around alcohol is drink in moderation, drink responsibly. Like we should all just be able to do that. And
Yeah.
for gray area drinkers, there are many factors at play that will impact women being able to do that, but they will then take that on themselves and feel shame or why can't I drink less? Why do I always drink more? And they think it's their fault. And that's why I'm so passionate in my programs about really supporting women to know it's not your fault. There'll be many underlying factors, both genetic, physiological, experiences you've had in your life with associations with alcohol that will play a part in the relationship you have with it now. And, I ran a poll in my group. I have 25,000 in my bigger group. And I said, why do you drink? And there were three reasons, Jill. And it was boredom, stress, and loneliness. And we have this generation of midlife women who are really busy,
Lost.
but when they have
And
time for
yeah,
themselves, they're bored because they don't know what to do with themselves because they've been giving of themselves to so many other people for so long. They're stressed because show me a midlife woman who's not stressed. And
yeah.
they're lonely because we're often starved of authentic, real connection because we're so connected online. But actually, that real, deep, in person, authentic connection that women so crave, we're often really starved of. And that's what they're escaping through their alcohol use.
I often say on the show, like, we have to go back to around the campfire days, right? Where you're having the deep, raw, real conversations, that I think we all crave. And really, this is how this podcast was born. But um, talk to me about, though, Sarah, what a healthy relationship with alcohol looks like.
And that's different for everyone. I think that the signs that your relationship is unhealthy, let's just run through a few of those. So
Yeah.
every time you have an uncomfortable emotion, your
Yeah.
first thought is to have a drink. Um, you often drink more than you intend to. So oh, I'm just going to have one drink often turns into two, three, or four. You perhaps are silently noticing that alcohol's taking more than it's giving and it's starting to have a negative impact on you, but you are struggling to make change. And then if I said to your listener right now, okay, starting tomorrow, let's do 30 days off alcohol. If you've got a healthy relationship with alcohol, you'd just be like, sure, like, I don't care. If I need to go 30 days tomorrow, I'll go 30 days tomorrow. If you have a more unhealthy relationship with alcohol, you're likely going to be, oh, I can't do that. I've got that party, I've got that wedding, I've got that holiday, I've got that family event. What am I going to do on a Friday night? Like, if that's showing us that we've got some kind of emotional reliance. So take my friend Nat. We'll go to the pub and I'll say, Nat, do you want a drink? And she'll be like, do I want a drink? Do I want a cider? Do I want a Coke? Yeah, I'm just going to have a Coke. Like, she just doesn't have a relationship with alcohol at all. It's kind of like nothing for her. Whereas for me, I'd have already had a drink before I got to the pub. Then I'd have been at the pub and I'd have been working out, oh shit, I drove and now I want to have a few drinks. Can I leave the car here? Get an Uber home? I'll get the car in the morning. Have I got time to do that? Like, my relationship with alcohol wasn't healthy in that way. And so someone who's got a healthy relationship, they can just take it or leave it. It just doesn't matter to them. And if we've got that unhealthy relationship, we're using it for something. And that's harder to walk away from.
We're recording this show just because I know podcasts live on forever, right? But we're recording this as we approach the holiday season. So, do you have advice for women or men who maybe you struck a chord with while they've been listening to this? And how do they manage the holiday season when they're not really happy with the amount of alcohol that they drink?
I think it's the hardest time to think about changing our drinking because it is a time where most people will drink more and it's way more socially acceptable to be drinking in a whole range of situations. So if you want to be more mindful around your alcohol use this festive season, I would recommend let's get real with our units. So let's really start. One drink is not one unit. Let's just be really clear about that. You will hear someone say 6 drinks a week is okay, like one drink a day. Now, they mean one unit, which is 125 mils of wine. Most people are drinking 250 mils of wine when they pour one glass. That's 2 units, or it could be 2.5 units if the alcohol content of that wine is higher. So let's start to get clear with monitoring
Yeah.
our units. Let's
Right.
make sure we're having at least 3 alcohol-free days a week, and we're take ideally you want to have a day in between drinking. It takes 72 hours for alcohol to fully metabolize and leave your system. So giving your body that break. And we haven't talked about the calories either. A lot of people, they're very health conscious as well, and the alcohol's very calorific. And it can take 48 hours for your body to switch to fat burning after consuming alcohol because it's having to process the alcohol. So all our efforts at weight loss and going to the gym and eating really well are completely sabotaged by our
Mm.
alcohol use. I would also say start getting curious. So I've written a brilliant book that is just, I get thousands of responses to, called Beyond Booze: How to
Mm.
Create a Life You Love Alcohol Free. And that could be a really great place to start, of just reading a book that is prompting you to reflect on your own relationship with alcohol, and some tips in there around how you might want to change it. And
Mm.
for any of your listeners that want to join one of my programs, I have an alcohol free challenge that starts on the 4th of January. And that is going to be a really supportive group. Sorry, guys, it is for women only. And it's really the best place to come to get that coaching support to create positive change around your drinking habits. And the other thing is, I'm sure in the States it's like it is over here. I've heard that it is. There is a rise in alcohol-free drinks. So can you start trialing and
Mm.
experimenting with an alcohol-free gin or an alcohol-free champagne instead of having the actual alcoholic version? Is something great to
Mm.
do over the festive season as well.
Mm. How do you how well, what would you say to someone who says, "I don't wanna be judged by not drinking," you know?
Look, I think this is the time that it's okay to say a white lie. And depending on who you're talking to, I'm on antibiotics, I'm doing a health kick, whatever the reason
Mm.
might be. But I always say with your closest friends, and I've got a whole chapter in my book about how to navigate this, tell them how alcohol's making you feel. I don't know many women in midlife for whom alcohol will not be having a more negative effect because of our hormonal changes. So it does
Right.
increase your anxiety, it does wreck your sleep, it does lower your mood, it does create more brain fog. So it is
Right.
okay to say, alcohol's playing havoc with my hormones. I'm just taking a break for a while because I don't need alcohol thrown into the mix when they're all over the place anyway. So just, talking honestly like that can be helpful.
What kind of programs do you offer? You said you have a an array of programs for women?
Yeah, so I have alcohol-free challenges, and January is always like my biggest and best
Yeah.
one, and that's daily support with me and my team of coaches, really creating a community. We have women from all over the world, the US, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and we all come together with daily support to take a break from alcohol. And the next one, as I said, will start on the 4th of January. I also have a program on my website that you can start anytime, and that's perfect for men and women, and that's called my 30-day alcohol-free program. My book
Right.
is a great place to start as well, Beyond Booze. And then I run programs through the year around Thrive After 40, which is my menopause and nutrition program around how to manage our physical symptoms through peri and post menopause. And I have another program, Elevate, which is all around enhancing your mental well being when you've made that decision to remove alcohol. So, what are we actually going to do to support ourselves when we're having uncomfortable emotions? If we've taken the alcohol away, what are we going to actually start using instead to self soothe?
Mhm.
And how do we build resilience to deal with life's ups and downs? Because they're always going to be there. Like, life
Right.
isn't going to be all plain sailing just because we've removed alcohol, but we create a toolkit of what can support us through that time.
Can you give us, like, one way that people can self-soothe that doesn't involve alcohol?
So I love yoga nidra. Yoga nidra has changed my life, and I will do a yoga nidra every day because what I find is it resets my entire nervous system, and then I'm just not getting to that point of stress, and I
Mm.
can manage my emotions a lot better. And you can find them on Insight Timer. They're free. You just lie on the bed, you put your headphones on, get a beautiful eye pillow if you can, spray some nice essential oil, and give yourself 15, 20 minutes to just listen to what they're sharing in your headphones. You will drift off into this place where you're not awake, you're not asleep, you're semi conscious. It's like you're floating. And then afterwards, you feel amazing.
And it's called yoga. What is it called? Yoga.
Yoga Nidra, Nidra.
Oh, wow. Oh, I've never heard about that. I know we don't have much time left with you, but, I have so many questions that I had written down about this. I think you had written something. We have about a minute or two. You had written something about. I think it was your story of how you used to hide a bottle in the pantry, right? And and that was maybe when you finally did. Was it then you realized that you're like, okay, wait a second, like there's something more here going on.
Yeah, because I used to keep white wine in the fridge, but
Uh,
then I didn't put white wine in the fridge anymore because then it meant it wasn't cold and I didn't want to drink it. But I would keep red wine in the pantry. And so I would override that thing of
mm,
not putting the white wine in the fridge by going into the pantry, pouring a glass of red wine, drinking it really quickly, and then pouring another glass and coming out of the pantry as if I'd just poured one glass.
mm,
That's not normal and that's not
yeah,
healthy. And
yeah,
that was, and inside I knew that. And that was when I knew it was time to really honestly reflect on my drinking and create change.
yeah. I do want to reiterate because I think it's so important. There is no shame involved in just tackling this issue and maybe admitting or realizing that you're like, you know what, I have a bad relationship with alcohol that I want to tend to, right?
Absolutely. There's no
Yeah.
shame whatsoever. I was there. And all I can say to any listener who's feeling like I'm speaking to her right now, I've been where you are. And all I can tell you is changing my relationship with alcohol has changed my life. There is not a single aspect of my life that has not improved as a result of me taking alcohol out. The way I parent, the relationship with my kids, my physical health, my mental health, my emotional health, everything has got better. So give yourself the opportunity to experiment, take a break, because feeling 5 or 6 out of 10 every day, you deserve more than that.
Mm.
And give yourself the opportunity to see what alcohol might actually be doing by taking a break and then comparing to how you were feeling when you were drinking, and then get that raw data to decide, well, which version of me or which version of my life do I like more?
Ooh, I like that. And what's your website again, Sarah?
So my website is Sarah Rusbatch, RUSBATCH.com, or you can find me on Instagram. There's lots of information there, Sarah Rusbatch. And I have a free Facebook community, the Women's Wellbeing Collective. And that's a great place to come and hang out. You don't have to introduce yourself. You can lurk, you can listen to other women's stories. And it's a great place to start hearing from other women talking about the positive changes of changing their relationship with alcohol, because it's very interesting to start being exposed to that information
Mm,
when previously all we've been exposed to is that alcohol adds to our life and enhances our life.
mm. Could you ever imagine that this is what your path would be, and
Not
how
at
many
all.
women
Like
you, yeah, how many
it's
women
just
you've helped?
incredible.
Yeah.
And I turn 50 next year, Jill, and I got a place in the London Marathon, which is super
Oh,
exciting for me. And
congratulations.
it's on the day that I will celebrate 7 years alcohol free. And I feel like I'm aging backwards. I've got more energy, more vitality. I'm in the best physical health that I've ever been in. And that is a direct result of changing the drinking and overhauling my entire life, which happened because I got the booze away.
Oh, I love it. So just give it a shot. Give it a shot, right? Just take that time and see. Just give it maybe a month, like you said, 30 days. Can you do 30 days? I love it.
Exactly.
All right, Sarah, I just want to say thank you for so much for coming on the show. Again, you have a long day ahead of you there. It's the next day than we're at right here. It's in Australia, but thank you for sharing your incredible story. I think it's powerful and it will help anyone, help women, men. You have a remarkable story to tell.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Okay, I'm Jill Conway. Thank you for listening to the show celebrating incredible women like Sarah. I hope you're inspired to pursue your own goals, believe in yourself, and dream bigger. Your voice matters, and your story can help others. I hope you join me next time. Share this podcast with a friend and follow us on Instagram. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.